All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? I trust that everybody is having a fantastic day. Welcome to Marriage Monday. I am your host, Dr. Derren, and I am joined, as always, by my lovely wife, Lady Chalon. And we are here excited to share with you. I recognize that there is a football game on, and then in a few minutes, there's going to be another football game that's going to come on. And so many people will watch us now, yet other people will watch us later on. You all already know, so I don't even have to repeat it for you, but I am going to repeat it anyway, that our podcast is really designed to help men and women stay married. We want to give you the tools that you need because we snuck one time and we read that 1 out of every 2 marriages are ending in divorce. And we decided that we were going to do our part and we were not going to let another person get divorced. We came up with 3 things that happen. And as we go on, we're finding out that people are being helped. And so I want to welcome each one of you to Marriage Monday. And I want to thank you all for sharing tonight. We are excited to have our family, members of our family sharing with us. Danny and Andy are members of our family. I was getting ready to say Andy's name was wrong, but they are the Kennedys. And so we are excited to have the Kennedys sharing with us on today. So Andy and Danny, welcome to Marriage Monday.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we've been talking about, we recognize that October has so many different things. Everybody in every avenue of living has to have a time of celebration. And so October is highly and largely known for it being Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so we spent some time celebrating and honoring women who's kicking breast cancer in the face. In addition to that, while people are wearing pink, they're also wearing purple because there's a whole group of people that paused and said, you know what, we're not going to really spend a whole lot of time talking about breast cancer because some people are fighting to stay alive, but not due to cancer, but due to domestic violence. And so October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we've talked about, we have several people that have been in domestic violence and been in situations where domestic violence is on the forefront. But then there's another area that also, we really need to talk about because we recognize there is yet another area that men and women struggle in. And that is the third area is National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Month. And so that's what we're talking about this month. And so Andy and Danny, they're on because they have a very interesting, unique story. But as I've been talking to people, what I'm finding is that there are a lot of people that share the same story. And so last week, Chalon and I just talked a little bit about our story. We shared how we recognize what it's like and what it feels like. We recognize the mental anguish of what it means to lose a pregnancy multiple times. So we've lost multiple pregnancies, and everyone was different. And one of the things that it taught us was, while for many couples, the loss of a pregnancy pushes them farther away, but what it did for us was it really brought us closer, and it really helped us to understand that if we are connected, if we are connected and we really understand the principle of agreement, that we recognize, that when we release our faith, that God shows up. And so I already told y'all we in agreement for y'all, and we're going to talk probably offline about what it is that you all are believing for and what do you think is the next move. But I shared a little bit of our story, and we talked about the ups and the downs. And there were several people that reached out. There were several men that reached out to just kind of say, hey, this was something. My wife got frustrated with me because she didn't think I cared, because I process things very differently. Mm-hmm. And I think we went through the same thing, where I just process things very differently. I don't want to just keep talking about it, and I just process it very differently. And that's not to negate what it was that my wife was feeling. I tried really hard to be there to support her while spending time to process my own self. And one of the things that we learned is that everybody processes things differently. And so there really is no right way. There's no wrong way. Right. It's just my way. It's how I go about doing things. And so I'm going to stop talking for a minute. And Andy and Danny, I want to welcome y'all to Marriage Monday. And then I want you to just kind of talk to us a little bit about your love story before we really get into, all of the meat about, what happened and how many times it happened and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about your love story. How did Andy and how did Danny come to meet Andy, and how that you all are 7 years in? Are you 7 years married?
7 years married, 11 together.
Yep, very good. So talk to us a little bit about your love story.
Go ahead, start. So we met, we were both students at Rognall Heights Elementary Middle, located in Emerson Village. Okay. We were both leaders of our after-school Bible study club.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And so then y'all remember, I wasn't really into boys. I was just like, I got to get good grades. I got to stay out of trouble. And so I
was concerned about getting good grades, but I was into girls all the time. There was a balance in my life.
Let me just set the record straight.
I was a dweeb. I'll accept that and own it. But anyway, when we were in middle school, we saw each other, knew each other, but we didn't really bond. Like, we didn't really work on a relationship, even a friendship, really. We worked together in school. Fast forward to college, like 2007-ish.
You skipped a lot. So you started me off at elementary school. So what happened in middle and high school? Where y'all
we didn't really have social. So we went to City.
Okay.
I went to City. I'm a year ahead of him. We both went to City. When he came to City, I never saw him there.
Really? Okay.
We saw him in the home.
I barely went to ninth grade. Just going to throw that out there also. That was a real questionable time in my life. But we never crossed paths when I was there.
Yeah, never crossed paths. And then we didn't have social media like that. We only had MySpace. So we didn't really connect. They didn't try to say, hey, you got a mutual friend over here or anything. So it was kind of off the radar all throughout high school. Got to college. I ran into one of the woman who started the after school program is his aunt.
Okay.
And so I ran into her in the market, and she was like, I want you to come to this reunion / banquet she's having for the current students that she had in Y2K in the after school program.
Okay.
And so I came. I was looking cute.
Always.
Thank you. And then Danny came, and we sat at the same table, and we started random conversation.
We didn't exchange phone numbers. We added each other on Facebook. We became social media friends.
Okay.
And then my aunt, she also runs the summer day camp at my church.
Okay.
And so she was looking for a teacher, and she asked me if I could get in contact with her.
Okay.
Andy. And so I sent Andy a message. I said, hey, she's looking for a teacher. If I get you the job, you got to let me take you out.
Okay. That was smooth, Danny. Yeah, Danny.
So long story short, she got offered the job, but she didn't take it that year because she was with Social Security.
All right.
But the deal was, if I get her the job, I got her the job because she got an offer.
Right.
And so we went out. Now, Andy's story is she didn't know it was a date. even though the agreement was, if I get you the job, you got to let me take you out.
Absolutely.
She didn't know it was a date. She fell in love on the first day. And it's been, it's been wonderful ever since.
All right. Very good. So when did y'all know that it was something? Like how long after the dating that y'all kind of felt like, you know what, I'm kind of feeling him and I kind of like her?
It happened pretty quickly, surprisingly.
Within that first week.
Yeah, it happened rather quickly. It was a really strong connection between us after the first week. So we went out, I forget what
June 21st.
No, I forget what actual day it was. But the following week, we saw each other like every day.
Every single day.
Wow.
Every day. I would during the summer when she would work at Social Security, I worked overnight. I would get off of work, pick her up, take her to work, drop her off, go home, take a nap, go on her lunch break, go get lunch with her, go back home.
Yeah.
He was smitten.
Yeah. Take her home, and then I would go to work. So
wow. All right. And fast forward from there. So how long, after we got engaged, how long was the engagement?
The engagement was
about 3.5 years, 4 years. I was scared.
Okay.
I was scared.
Very good. Very good.
I'm very cautious. Just of he. Yes.
We came from two different marital backgrounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw what I perceived as a healthy marriage.
Okay.
My parents have been married all of my life. My father's a pastor, has been a pastor since I was 2. And I saw what I considered to be a great example of marriage.
Okay.
Yes, I have family members who had divorces, multiple marriages, but in my house, I came from that background. Hers was different,
Okay.
I came from, y'all know my family, they're married.
Right.
Everybody stayed married. Grandma, Tony, mommy. I just really always focused on like the hardships of marriage.
Yeah.
When I started their marriages.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got the patience for that. I don't know if I'm ready for, being everything 24/7.
Got it. So after 3 years, you kind of felt like, you know what, I might be ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
After calling this engagement off several times, and we finally decided,
all right,
do it.
Okay, good stuff. So then 7 years ago, we go down the aisle. We are, we're walking. We're young professionals. We are experiencing, we're experiencing bliss. Now, when it came time to having the conversation about us enlarging our family, was that a conversation? Did y'all plan how this was going to work, or did y'all just arrive there?
Well, to begin, we always said we didn't want kids. We didn't want for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through engagement, through dating, through engagement, up until like the second year of our marriage, it was like we didn't really want any kids.
Yeah, for two different reasons. Mine was, I had inspiration. I wanted to travel. I wanted to. After college, I didn't plan on getting married, getting engaged, because he proposed at my graduation.
Okay.
So I was planning on like traveling the world, not settling down, going to live in Africa for 4 years, something like that. I just didn't want to be bound. Like I spent a lot of time with Bria and Damien. That took a lot of my freedom. Like I want
to
live.
On my part, having a child was my biggest fear.
Okay.
The process is something you have absolutely no control over. And I admit I have some control issues. I don't like being a part of processes where I have zero control over.
I like it.
So my thing was I had a fear of it.
Okay.
I have no control. All these people talk about, you hear every pregnancy is different. Even if they just don't know everything. And it's like, if they can't control it, then I really didn't want to be a part of it. And that was the hesitation on my behalf. So I covered my fear and I'm fine with no kids. I don't need any kids. I'm fine. That was my part.
Got it. Okay. All right. So then we get the news that we're pregnant the first time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So take us there.
It was 2017, the beginning of that year, January, we decided, you know what, let's give it a whirl. And so I'm diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you have cysts on your ovaries, which impacts your fertility. So your cycle's irregular. It's like a moving target trying to figure out when you're ovulating.
Right.
And so I kind of in the back of my mind always assumed it would be a difficult process for us to get pregnant, which was also feeding into why I wasn't pressed to have kids.
Right.
To try, talk yourself out of it. And so went to endocrinologist. They put me on medicine, told me to change my diet. And
so on your first time out, you already started doing that. So you went to the
endocrinologist.
Yeah, you went there on the very first one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because since we were already notified that it was going to be
tough.
Yeah. We just her doctor recommended that we take that route.
Okay.
So that's what we did.
Got it. All right. So now we at the doctor. We changing the diet. We doing all of that. So we're doing everything that was requested.
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't know we were pregnant. I ended up, I think March came around and my job was stressing me out. They will remain nameless. I was stressed. And so I was very transparent. Like even to this day, they've asked if I wanted to come back. So it wasn't I didn't leave on a bad note.
Right.
But they were understanding that we were trying to build a family and I needed to eliminate as much stress as possible.
Okay.
So we quit the job about a week or 2 weeks after that.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving and I kept having I was leaving Marshall's. I had these heavy feet, like a cramp, but it wasn't a cramp. It was weird. And something kept saying, take a pregnancy test. Got home, took a test, and it was positive. I didn't believe it. And so I took like 5 of them things.
Mm-hmm.
And went to the emergency room. Turns out I just wasn't drinking enough water. And I was 8 weeks pregnant with Malachi. Yep.
Wow. All right. So you were 8 weeks at the time that you even found out that you were pregnant.
Right. So the only symptoms that I exhibit when I'm pregnant is frequent urination.
Okay.
I don't get sick. I sleep a lot. I sleep and I use the bathroom a lot. Okay. So I was just like, maybe it's just my hormones, or maybe I'm PMSing. Sorry for the frank, but
this is a keep it real part.
Okay, good. So pay attention to any abnormalities.
Got it. You gonna say something? Mm-hmm. All right. So where are we at emotionally at this point? Are we still kind of guarded and nervous? Like, okay, what's happening with you, and then Danny, what's happening with you at this point?
There you go. I was excited because I didn't think that it would happen that fast for us.
Okay.
I honestly had some doubts that I would get pregnant. And so to find out that we did get pregnant, I was happy, but I was also very anxious because my thing is security. I didn't have a job. We only had one income.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't think we thought this through because now I'm pregnant. We ain't got no money. I'm in school. I was also in school with Liberty University. Okay. So I was stressed out because those were 8-week courses. And so it was just very overwhelming, to say the least. So I was a ball of different emotions at that time.
Okay. All right. Danny, what are you feeling at this point? So we 8 weeks in, we have this news. Do you know at this point that Andy is, that she's like, she's stressed about the job situation, she's stressed about school? Do you know all of that is taking place, or did you have to kind of find it out? Like,
no, I knew she was stressed about school. The part that she skipped was about her job piece was one day that when she was working that job, she left the house before I did.
Okay.
And so she got up, she did her regular routine, kissed me, went downstairs to leave out. But like 5 minutes later, I hear her calling for me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was gone, but she was downstairs having a panic attack.
Wow.
Okay.
Based off of or an anxiety attack, one or the other, based off of the stress of the job.
Got it.
I'm like, you know what? You're quitting. So
quit today.
But yes, like
Yeah.
we said, like you're going there and you're going to put your letter in. You're lucky I'm letting you go put your letter in, or I would call them and tell them you're not coming back.
Right.
So I knew about that stress.
Okay.
So at the time when she told me she was pregnant, I was excited, I was nervous, and I was afraid all at the same time.
Okay.
Excited because, hey, because we were under the impression it's going to take a while. It may not, but like literally, it was like she started the diet, started the exercise, and got pregnant right off the top. And so it was the excitement of that. It was the nervousness of, okay, like I said, I was that process was fearful for me. So I was like, oh man, like, what's going to happen? What can happen, what may happen, things like that. And then it's like, oh man, now what kind of father am I going to be?
Right.
How am I now going to be? Wait a minute, the house isn't the way that I want it to be. Am I making enough money to be able to support as a whole family? Now, since we're just my income alone, and with Andy going to school, and so it was a range of emotions that went through my mind. Mostly it was excitement. I will say that my excitement did go above anything else.
Got it.
But there were other feelings that were creeping in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we get past the panic attack. You quit the job.
Yeah.
Did you go in and give your notice that day?
Oh yeah. I don't think it was that day. Maybe
it was like that
week or something. Yeah.
Week.
Okay.
I think that day I had went and talked to my direct boss.
Okay.
And what was coming down, but she had already figured because we were kind of close.
Yeah.
We are kind of close. So yeah.
All right. So we 8 weeks in.
Mm-hmm.
We dealing with some stress and some panic attacks, and so what? Take me down to the next week.
The next week, but after the
panic attack.
Yeah, so I gave them my 2 weeks. I still went to work, but I think in my mind I had already checked out. So I was like, I don't care what gets done, what don't get done.
Right.
I tried to leave on a good note, created a manual for the person who replaced me and all that stuff. I had about $2,000 saved up. So I was like, all right, mentally preparing myself, like, okay, Andy, we're gonna have to dial back the splurging and everything. Right. So yeah, they gave me a going away party. And I just started being home. But that was weird for me. Because I had worked since I had been out of college.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to be a housewife.
Okay.
That was a whole new territory of womanhood that I had to explore. Like, what does this look like? How does this look like? What would this look like for me?
Right.
Still.
So are you convinced at this point that pregnancy for me is just going to be difficult? Or have we not had any problems up to this point? No problems.
Just extra panicky. I was just extra anxious. Like Danny used to take me away from my homework and sit me on the porch in my pajamas to tell me, like, girl, if you don't get yourself together, like, calm down. We're fine.
Now, was this pregnancy induced? Was the panic attacks pregnancy induced, or had you had panic attacks before this?
I don't know if I knew they were panic attacks.
Okay.
So I didn't start going to therapy until 2016, which was the year before we got pregnant. Okay. So she started helping me identify what those things were, things what my behaviors meant, or what certain actions or responses meant, what triggers were. Yeah. So being in therapy helped me to pinpoint and identify, like, okay, that's what this is.
Okay.
So I may have had anxiety and panic attacks before and just didn't know
know what it was. Got it. Okay. All right. So we're at what, like week 10, 11, 12 at this point?
Yeah. So up until about everything was fine. Malachi was healthy, heartbeat, everything. Up until everything was normal. We had a normal first trimester, some sickness. Barely gained any weight, got to about what was that, like week 17? We had to schedule our anatomy scan. Okay. And so we were supposed to do 1 week, but they was like, why don't you just do something in the same day? And we ended up going in our 19th week.
Okay.
So we get in for the anatomy scan and we were going to find out the gender and everything. And so she saw something on the screen but didn't tell us. She couldn't tell us. She said, I'm going to get a doctor.
Right.
Yeah. And that frustrates me because on our miscarriages, the first time they got us, we didn't know the signs, we didn't understand, we just excited, we in there, they doing the thing, and we thought it was a little weird that they've been, they working with the sonogram thing and they putting more gel on, and I'm like, we don't need no more gel, like what's going on? And she was like, you know what, I'm gonna run and get the doctor because, he's just being really difficult. And so we just like, all right, we still laughing and joking, and we just like, we would have a difficult baby and all of this. And so when the doctor came in, the doctor didn't have, I think that they're probably trained that when they come get you, because those techs are very skilled, they're very trained, and so they know what the deal is. And so when they go and get so then we've been there. We didn't really understand it the first time, but we got it.
Yeah.
Second time. So then the doctor comes in, she looks to ensure that what the tech said was really what the tech said, and then they have to kind of give you the news.
The bad news, yeah.
Okay.
And they didn't even really tell us too much. It was kind of like, this is what's happening. We're gonna put you in a wheelchair. They say your cervix is opening.
It's
up.
funneling.
It's funneling.
Yeah. So they saw that I was pretty much just starting to dilate.
Yeah.
And so
then everything happened so quickly.
Yeah. So they ran me upstairs, put me in a T-bird position. So they put you in the bed and they tilt you head down to the ground.
Right.
And I had to sleep like that for 24 hours. And they were hoping that would relieve the pressure off the cervix. So it would start back up. Didn't work. They came back early the next day and was like, yeah, we're going to have to do a cerclage. Which is them pretty much tying my cervix up, putting a bow in it.
Now, have they shared with you at this point anything?
We knew it was a boy.
Okay.
We knew it was a boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Outside of that, they told us. We knew what she had. Her cervix had opened up more. It didn't stay the same. It didn't get smaller. It actually opened up a little bit more.
Okay.
We said, well, we're going to have to do the cerclage. And that's
this
just
was called
much,
a rescue cerclage.
Yeah, just taking a piece of yarn and wrapping it around
it's
the
mesh,
cervix.
not yarn.
Okay. Taking some
rope, like yarn to you, Dan.
Take some rope and they wrap it around.
Taking the crochet
and pull it closed. That's what they do.
Crochet my uterus.
They put a they call it seamstress and they sew it up. That's what they do. And so it was. They were like, well, this should work. Of course, every plan of action that they come up with is what should work.
Right.
That's going to be, it's this effective, blah, blah, blah. So,
but it was a rescue cerclage, which has a lower success rate than the other types of cerclages.
Okay.
Which we didn't learn until afterwards.
Okay.
So they went in, put the anesthesia in, got on the table. Danny couldn't go in there with me. They had to give me not an epidural? Yeah, they gave me a spinal anesthesia, I guess, for cerclage. And so, so they sent me home. I came out, took me upstairs. Did they keep me overnight for after that? I think they did. Sent me home. A couple of it was some spotting. They said the spotting is normal. It should go away. If you see more blood, you need to come back. And so we were fine for like 2 days, started having cramping. And I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was just a normal part of the process, healing process. And then it started getting intense, and then it turned into, I think, contractions. By that time, it's like the end of the day on a Tuesday, Monday. And so, having a moment, my brain.
Yeah. So she started bleeding.
Yes. And so we went in.
And so we went to the hospital.
This was at GBMC. Worst experience I ever had. We'll never go back to GBMC.
Really?
Our doctor, the lady who was on call that night, she was like, why didn't you call me sooner? Why didn't you come in sooner? I said, ma'am, I've never been pregnant before. How would I know what a contraction feels like?
Right.
Could have been gas. I don't know what. So they were just very. Their bedside manner wasn't the best.
Okay.
The nurses that were there were amazing. Like, she was crying with me.
Okay.
But besides that, I will never go back to GBMC. So they brought me upstairs. Contractions were intense. I think they kept me overnight, and then they came back for a final.
Try to put her in T-Bird.
They looked at the final, did a final observation, and a high risk doctor came in and was like, "It's nothing else we can do. This is your decision." And this is where it got hard for me, because I had to choose to let my son go. Either risk losing my cervix and destroying my cervix by keeping the stitch in and going into labor, or just let the pregnancy pass.
Right.
And so for a while that messed me up, because it was like I was a willing participant in losing my son. Like, that's how my brain processed it.
Okay.
And so they took me down to the room. This time though, so in the beginning when I had to get the cerclage put in, they lifted me on the table. This time I had to lift myself up and put myself on the table. And I was like, "Y'all not going to help me?" And they said, "No, we can't help you with this process." And I broke down. It took me like 5 minutes. I was in tears, because I'm like, willing participant. I have to put myself on this table to give y'all my son.
Right.
And so I just didn't understand. I'm like, what's the difference between now and before? And I was in so much pain. So to like lift my body in the middle of a contraction at 20 weeks, it was yeah. And so they took the stitch out. They gave me an epidural. I was a little out of it, and I couldn't feel anything from like the waist down.
Yeah.
I just remember my stomach feeling upset. Okay. And so at that time we had our good friends there with us in the room. Robin and Rashad, my stepfather, was there as well. And so I was like, I don't feel good. And so when she came in, she lifted the blanket, and I guess she saw that I started delivering. So they just rushed everybody out of the room. And then after they left out the room, that's when the whole team just came running in, and everything else was like a blur for them.
Right. Right. Okay.
So for me, really, when she went out to get the cerclage taken out, in my mind, it was like, it's over. Right. So while she in the room, I'm trying to be the man, you know. So growing up, I never saw my father cry outside of the pulpit.
Okay.
Outside of preaching, I never saw him cry. So I was programmed that
you don't cry.
You don't cry.
Wow.
Right.
So whole time she's in the room, I'm trying to, be me. I'm a little crazy. I can't be serious for long periods of time. So, make a little joke every now and then, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And they took her out, and I was a wreck. Like, I called my brother and broke down. But I knew I didn't have much time. I had to let it out, and I had to get it back together.
Okay.
But when she got back in the room, I had gotten myself together.
Okay.
So she comes in.
It was over.
And they're like, yeah. So to me, I thought when she left out, they were going to deliver the baby then, and I would never see him. That was my assumption. Mm-hmm. They brought it back in, and they were like, well, he's gonna come anytime. We don't know how long it'll be. Mm-hmm. And so, like Andy said, my best friend and his wife was there. Her stepdad came, and so nurse comes in, lifts the blanket, and it's like, oh, okay. I need everybody to leave the room. And team comes in. And still at this point, I'm trying to be the strong guy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be the funny guy. So you guys know, in the delivery room, they got that big light in the ceiling.
Yeah.
A big old light in the ceiling. And it was calling me the whole time we were in there. I'm like, how do you turn this big light on? Mm-hmm. And Andy knew that's what I wanted to do. So when they all came in and cut the light on, I whispered in their ear, I know how to turn the light on now. Just to kind of insert some levity. She smiled, she laughed a little bit in that situation.
Andy, at this point, do you think Danny is crazy?
No.
Okay.
I'm surprised, because that's him.
That's him. That's him. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
In serious moments, I try to bring some levity. somehow.
Yeah, and at that moment, I had lost a lot of blood. My blood pressure dropped to something crazy.
Yeah, her face
and I
was
started
pale.
shaking.
I thought honestly, I was about to lose them both.
Wow.
Then
She lost all color in her face.
Yeah.
She was gray in her face.
Okay.
And in my mind, it was, my life is about to completely change. Because I'm losing my child and I'm losing my wife at the same time.
Yeah. Now, Andy, did you know that? What he
I didn't know that he thought I was going to die. But
okay.
I thought she was completely pale.
So where you are right now is really where I want to spend the rest of the time. So, you know, we've already talked, and we just kind of said that there's been multiple pregnancy loss. So one of the things, if you really needed to pinpoint, because every pregnancy is different, and regardless if you lost one, the second one, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, all of them are going to be difficult. And so what happens many times is that you come in contact with people that say the stupidest stuff. Like, did y'all have people to say stupid stuff? Oh, don't worry about it. Y'all young and y'all are having, I mean, like, some people just really don't understand that there's some things that you never ever, and you don't tell somebody if you got 3 kids and you pregnant now and you about to deliver, don't tell me that you know what I'm dealing with, or you know what I'm going through. So talk a little bit about the simple things that people say, and then how were you all able to just kind of pull it up in you so that you didn't play the blame game, like you didn't, you know, there are some people that end up in divorce court because the dude say the wrong thing, or, you know, out of his frustration, he will say the wrong thing. Like, you know what, I don't ask you for much. I just asked you to be pregnant. I just asked for 3 kids, and, you know, say the stupidest wrong stuff. And some women are not able to kind of recover from that. So, Danny, talk to me a little bit about how are you processing, you know, we've just lost this baby. I need to be here for my wife. So you break down, you get it back together. So what does the weeks after that, like, what was the process that y'all used to really stay whole, to just kind of make sure that, you know what, you know, I still love you. You still my boo.
Right.
You know, you still pretty. I still only have eyes for you. Like, talk to me about that process.
So one thing I had to accept, that we did all we could do.
Right.
It's not like Andy is a smoker or a heavy drinker or does drugs or anything like that. We did what the doctors did. They told us to change our diet. They told us to exercise. They told us that they put her in T-Berg. They sent her back home. They put the cerclage in. We did what they recommended for us to do. Okay. And so I had to come to the understanding that we did all that was directed of us. And we didn't shortchange any process. We didn't take any shortcuts. We did all that we could do. And it's nothing that we could have done to change the situation.
Right.
And so I had to understand it's not her fault. I can't say I'm a Christian man and believe that God is the giver of life. Blame her because we lost a baby.
Put a pin right there. Andy, did you ever blame yourself or feel like Danny was blaming you for this? Or was there any guilt that you were feeling that you all didn't talk about?
Oh, certainly. I never felt like he was blaming me at all. After all 3 losses, those were the most intimate times of our marriage. Those moments, like the pillow talks, we would stay up for hours just talking about life.
Okay.
So I never felt disconnected or judged or anything from him. Okay. But I was my worst enemy. Like, I told myself, I always struggled with my sensuality as a woman and be walking confidently as a woman, bold and everything. And so for me to lose a baby, I blamed myself because I'm like, am I not woman enough? Right. So then I started questioning my worth. Was it because I said I didn't want kids that God was like, I'm not giving you kids? But then I'm like, people say they don't want kids all the time and they get pregnant.
Right.
So I don't think that's the truth. So I had to alter my self-talk.
Okay.
My self-talk was not the first pregnancy loss. It wasn't healthy at all. Like it was bad. So yeah, it was definitely. It was I had to because then at that time a lot of my friends had just had their first children.
Okay.
And so I didn't have them to lean on or to validate and affirm me.
Yes.
So I was literally, it was me and God. And the first one I would push Danny away, even so, because I didn't know how to be vulnerable then.
Yes.
With my husband.
Now hold that, Andy. Danny, did you feel that? Did you feel like she didn't know how to be vulnerable to you? Were you able to sense that, or did you not know?
I didn't sense it as her not knowing how to be vulnerable.
Okay.
So because after we lost Malachi, that first week when we came back home, we were in it together. Like we were in the thick of it. We were like in the thick of it. I'm talking. Her family came and said something wrong, and I'm like, no, you ain't gonna say nothing. I said something like, no, you ain't gonna say that. You ain't gonna do that. And we were in it together. And but then as the weeks went along, and she's having these breaking moments. I've never heard a cry the way she would cry in the middle of the night. She would be in the basement, and I would hear her scream in the bedroom. All the way upstairs. And so I would go downstairs and I would be like, I try not to say something. She always say that I talk too much when those moments. And so it's like, do you want me to just be here?
Yeah.
What do you need me to be in this moment?
Right. And it was always no.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't touch me.
Wow.
And so I knew that she was blaming herself for it.
Okay.
Even though she wasn't expressing it, because I know her background. I knew she dealt with those self-esteem issues. And I knew that I knew how excited we were to be pregnant.
Yeah.
So I knew losing that she was putting the blame on herself. I never translated it as her not knowing how to be vulnerable with me. I thought it was just her putting all of the blame on herself.
Got it. Now, did you ever feel like Andy felt like you didn't understand, or that you should be grieving the same way that she's grieving? Like, did y'all ever go through that? And did y'all talk about, you know what, babe, I just don't grieve the way that you grieve, but I'm still grieving. I'm still torn up. I'm still hurting. Talk me through that.
That was definitely a huge part of contention in our marriage at the time.
Okay.
Because she literally said to me, like, you don't cry about it. And again, I'm like, I cry, but I cry alone. And for a long time, for months, it was like, I don't grieve the way we don't grieve alike, because in my opinion, if you are a wet paper towel, I can't be a wet paper towel at that
point. Right.
Because again, it goes back to me never seeing my father cry, me never seeing a man express that emotion around anybody.
Okay.
And so it was ingrained in me for 20 years that you stay strong as the man. And when I was around her, when she would break down, I would be there. I would try to just sit in the room. And if she needs me, I would be there. Like sometimes it was get out, get away from me. Sometimes it was come closer. I would just and that did in turn cause issues down the road. Also, we may get there also. But it was I don't grieve the way you grieve. And see, also for me, death is different for me because I'm a preacher for March Funeral Home. March calls me to do funerals. I've experienced a lot of death in my life. I've experienced a lot of people, going into the hospitals and seeing people just being there when the doctors say they'll never come out of this and having to be the person that people look to for the answer.
Right.
So professionally as a preacher, that's just one of the things that, that we do. So tell me, how did we make it through? Because you all are clearly still together. You all still have a glow. I see how y'all smile at each other. So it's very clear that even after 7 years, that there is still some fire there. So how did you all get there? Because there's so many people. So the studies show that 1 in 4, Andy, when you did your live, I loved it because you started it off by talking about the statistic that said 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in loss. And you said, I am the one. I loved it because I was just like, okay, at this point, she has owned it, worked through it, have processed through it, and now she's putting it out there to really help somebody. So there's some people watching tonight that their stories are similar. They are in the same space. They recognize the hurt and the fear and the nervousness, because then you're at a place where what do us's do now? Like, there's been so much disappointment. And then you get to the place, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you get to the place where you just like, God, I serve your people. I'm a songbird before the Lord. I sing. People invite me all over to sing. I try to love your people. I live right. I do all of this. And so I know there had to be some time, and God can handle this. And I hope I don't have no people that's just like the nerve of you. But there has to be some time where you have to just kind of be honest, to be like, you know what, God, I got an attitude with you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not coming to church. Nobody asked me to sing. I'm not preaching. I'm not dealing with this. And the great thing about God is he can handle that. And so talk to me about how you all were able to handle that. And I can't believe we're at the end of our hour, but tell me about how you were able to handle that, and then just kind of talk about where you are right now.
I think we came to the agreement that we felt the same way towards God, and it wasn't good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was because I'm not going to be no preacher who just preaches the lovely, flowery stuff of the word. No, it was people in the Bible who said, the prophet said, God, I'm not saying nothing else to you until you listen to me. And we got to the point where, no, like, God, like, I'm pissed off at you. I'm not upset. I'm not mad. No, I'm
pissed off.
I'm pissed off with you.
Yeah.
You gave me these words, and I'm going to give them to you. I'm pissed. We're pissed. We're broken. We're hurt. We're tired. I might have, and it was some stuff I had to work through with the other pregnancy losses and what they did for us. But I may have taken 2 weeks away from church, 3 weeks. But it was like, to me, I had a dedication to the church that was unhealthy for me.
Okay.
And so I jumped back in it.
Okay.
I'm broken, tired, drained, angry. I jumped back in it. And I think that us realizing that we were pissed with God individually, so let us be pissed with God together.
Right.
And let us work through it together. And I think
y'all okay talking to each other about, like, Andy, you married to a preacher, whose father pastors the church. Were you comfortable talking to him about your disappointment with how, why it is that we found ourselves? And did you have questions? Because, he the man of God. So you ain't see this coming. Like, talk to me about what your thought process was at this point, while you all have collectively agreed that we frustrated with God.
I think every loss, I became a different Andy.
Okay.
And so that changed how so like the first one, after we lost Malachi, I think I took like a month off.
Okay.
And I was like, that's all right. We're going to do this. God's going to get the glory out of this. And I did not feel comfortable. I didn't really want to say that I was mad at God then. But I also don't think I knew how to articulate the emotion that I felt towards God.
Okay.
And then after the second one, I was like, I know God wouldn't do this to us again. Like, I was like, oh, how dare he? And so I feel like after the second one, I was more verbal about how pissed I was about, what he did.
Right.
And so, yeah, and definitely after the second one, I began, even with, because you got the churchy folks and they always say, just pray about it, take it to the Lord.
And you like, I done prayed. I've been praying. Like,
and you can't respond how you want to, because I'm a reflection of my husband and the bishop of the church. I'm a Kennedy now. So I can't be Andy Chase. That's dead. I got to be Second Lady Andy and really watch how I articulate my pissed offness with the Lord. So I feel like every loss, it made me more transparent.
Okay.
Able to communicate my frustration with him.
Got it. All right. So where are we now? We've had multiple losses, and let me just pause and say how much I really appreciate you all coming, because I've had several couples to tell me, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I've had couples to tell me I'm not sharing my story with the world. And so let me applaud you all for pushing through it. I know that it, even now, I know that it still has to be painful. Do know that we are in agreement with you. So just kind of tell me a little bit about, where it is that you all now. How does things look in the Kennedy house now? What are you? And I'm not going to ask you to tell me on the internet what it is that you all are praying for. I just got that from the Holy Ghost. I'm not going to ask you that, because everybody
ain't gonna be praying with you.
Everybody not praying with you, and everybody not in agreement. So don't tell me what you believe in God for. Just tell me where you are now. What space are you in now? How are you emotionally? And if you had to identify one or two things that kept y'all together, kept y'all whole, kept y'all insane, and that still have y'all together now, tell me what that would be.
Two things that keeps us together now. We have non-negotiable date nights on Friday nights. That's our
yes, Danny. Yes.
It's been like that for about 4 years now. Our Fridays are ours.
All right.
And I feel like that changed the trajectory of our marriage.
Okay.
Even when we are not seeing eye to eye, we'll still spend the time together.
Okay.
We can be upset at each other, but we still gonna spend that Friday together.
Right.
Okay. All right.
You said two things: date night, and I think we have this weird morbid sense of humor that not everyone will get. So like somebody, like if I'm going out with my friends and they found babysitters for their kids, I'm like, yeah, my kids with the babysitter too, the Most High, or stuff like that.
So they probably look at you like, what did you just say?
You don't know how to respond to stuff like that. It's,
After one of the losses, I had lost like 20 pounds. And I said, yeah, I lost 20 pounds, girls. They was like, for real, what you doing? Or what diet was you on, or something? Or what program? Something like that. I said, oh, I just had a miscarriage. And I died laughing. It was like, Andy.
Right.
I think we try to make not light of the situation.
Right.
And but will you agree that you had to learn to do that? Because early on, you had to grow into that.
For sure. Okay. Because then sometimes we find ourselves in awkward conversations or awkward moments where people say stuff and then they be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't think."
Right.
It's like, let's break the ice a little bit. So you had to learn how to navigate through those conversations.
Okay.
Right now, I think this is probably the happiest we're in a very peaceful place in our marriage.
Okay.
I think we've come to the realization that, I know for me as individuals, individuals, the pregnancies had purpose.
Yeah.
Their lives still had purpose, even though they're not here today.
Yeah.
Even after this last one, I'm closer to my family than I've ever been in my 32 years of living.
Wow.
So I think individually, we're in a different place of self-actualization.
Yeah.
And our marriage is stronger than it's ever been.
I love it. Yes. I absolutely love it. And so multiple lost pregnancies, y'all are still together, still in love, and still believing God and still trusting God. I am so excited. Now, the last thing, this is Marriage Monday, and we just kind of talk about this. Is there, Danny, do you have trouble kind of touching and pulling up on your wife just based on all of that? Or, is it still real?
Oh no, I don't have no problem.
Okay. All right. Praise God. Praise God.
There's no problem. No problem at all. No. No, we don't.
Okay. All right.
I do want to share one thing, because one thing I think that helped me in our marriage we spent so much time focusing on our marriage collectively that we lost ourselves individually.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we're that makes us so happy now is we just started to discover what makes us happy individually.
Yeah.
And not only collectively. So this season is the season for us definitely discovering and working on ourselves.
Yes. That is so exciting. I feel like I've been doing all
I know,
the
you know, you have, but it's all right.
I keep looking at it like, when you gonna jump in?
One of the things I wanted to ask really quick, Andy, you said you had a difficult time getting to that place where you felt that you would allow him into your vulnerability. So how did that change for you? And at what point did it change? Was it after the first loss, or was it, after the second loss, or are you still working towards like truly being vulnerable with your husband?
Yeah, it was after my second loss. I discovered Brene Brown, and she talks about shame and vulnerability. And how it's difficult for women to articulate the emotional, what they're feeling as shame. And that's what I was dealing with in those moments. I had my breakup. I was ashamed that he would have to look at me that way. And so I read her book. I can't remember which one it was, the title. And she talked about, how you can combat shame with vulnerability. And really just bearing your soul, or just being transparent. Like, you know what, this is my insecurity. And, this is how I live with it. This is how I've dealt with it. And so I kind of started applying that across the board and just bearing my heart. Like, you know what, this is why I've reacted the way that I did. I apologize how it may have made you feel in that moment. I do acknowledge that I may have overreacted, or I may have done the wrong thing by doing X, Y, and Z. And just really talking it out. So I've been a lot more communicative with him in those moments.
Okay.
What I need, like literally, I need a hug. Can you give me
a Yeah.
So you don't have no problem articulating at this point to him what it is that you need. See, one of the things that Danny said that I love, he said he would come down the basement and he had made mistakes prior. And so at this point, he don't know what to do. So he's asking you, and I love that, Danny, that you was just like, what do you need from me in this moment? Do you just need me to sit here and just witness you crying, witness you screaming? Do you need me to touch you? You need me to embrace you? Do you need me to begin to call on, just call on the power of God? Like, what do you need? I thought that was awesome, but that was something that you had to learn, that, you know what, I need to, because ultimately I want to be who you need me to be right now. And so I might not, we might be doing the wrong stuff. You don't feel like being touched. Okay, cool. And I can't get offended because you don't feel like being touched. Because I think early on, I probably would get, after our first miscarriage, I probably was like, well, why you say it like that? I'm big on how we communicate, and it's certain little things that, she would say. And I'm like, well, why did you say it like that? But then I had to realize that she was going through an awful lot. And, and so it was not like there was a bigger grief than the other. So since you was actually carrying, and I was just, I used to tell her, you was carrying, but I gave birth first. You get that when you go home.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So no, let me close by just asking you all to have the last word. And so if there's some persons, that they're trying everything. I mean, I have friends right now, they are on their fourth pregnancy that was lost. I have friends now that, that's in the middle of trying the whole in vitro situation. I have people that's looking at doing a surrogate. I have one family that said that they had to just really ask themselves the question: do they really is our goal to have a baby, or is our goal to be a parent? And they decided that, we don't want to do this no more. They decided that they were going to go adopt, and they have, a beautiful 6-year-old baby girl that they adopted. So everybody is in a different space. Yeah. Everybody has dealt with and deal with loss differently. So what would you all say to people that are that could be in the trenches right now? And they don't know what to do. They don't feel like being bothered. They're thinking about walking away from their marriage, giving up on their dreams. What would you all collectively say? Danny, what would you say to the men listening. And then Andy, you close us out with what you would say to the women.
I would say that you can be a father without having a natural child. That you can still share the wisdom that life has given you, the wisdom that life has taught you. Understand that your spouse is not to blame. That it's not their fault. It's not your fault. It's not her fault. They're not to blame. If you want to be mad at God. He can handle it. He can handle it.
He can handle it.
He can still be God. He can still be great. He can still be amazing, and he can still be wonderful. So understand that you don't have to have a natural child in order to be a father. And if that's what you want to do, explore the options, but make sure that you come into agreement with your spouse about it. Don't jump ship in the storm, because you'll never get to the shore. That's not.
Yes.
Go ahead, preacher. Go preacher. Yes, sir.
I should have went. Anyway, I think the first thing, if you are in this process, that it is okay to not be okay. It's normal. If you've lost, you got grief compounded with postpartum hormones all over the place, plummeting, trying to manage both of those. It can be very dark and difficult, but it's normal to not feel okay, and that is okay. I had this woman tell me that she felt like God hasn't given me my flowers yet because I'm still watering everybody else's.
Wow.
And she was crying when she said it. And she said, thank you for, nurturing my grandkids. And so I had to take a step back. I'm in that moment. In a moment like that, I step back and I realized, like, I may not be a physical mom, I guess, like I may not have my child with me, but I have mothered and watered and nurtured other people's gardens. And so even with the work I do with my nonprofit, I channel my energy to that. So I just want to encourage women, like, find your flowers that you can water in the meantime. Meantime, be okay with that space in the middle of where you're trying to get to and where you're coming from, and making the best of that.
I love it. Yes. I love it. Yes. Well, Danny and Andy, let me just thank y'all for just taking the time for coming. I know it was a difficult topic, but I tried to make it as fun, and y'all just as crazy as us. So I really appreciate y'all. I will be tapping on you again to come and be our guest on Marriage Monday. Yes. So I'm gonna end the live, but I want y'all to stay on. So everybody, thank y'all so much for joining tonight. I know we held you a little longer, but you recognize that our goal is to give you the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision on moving your life forward. Thank you so much for sharing. We will be right back next week. And as we always say when we close the broadcast, we are rooting for you. God bless you.